All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. We'll start, call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a couple quick things before we get started. Looking at the agenda. Can I get a motion to move item 8 up to 6.10?
So moved.
Nancy, second?
Second.
Jim, thanks. Any discussion or comments? Is that okay with everyone? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And before we get into things, I'd like to introduce Nancy. Welcome, your first full meeting. Sorry I missed all the interview and the process and everything, but welcome, glad you're here, and anything you'd like to say? Floor is yours.
Nope. I'm happy to be here. I'm, resident of East Hampton for almost 15 years, mother of 2 kids in the school system. I have background in teaching, and I'm just excited for the opportunity to be able to serve the community in this capacity. Looking forward to it.
Okay, liaison reports, interboard liaisons. Board of Finance, we have a few members here. Any comments or anything from Board of Finance? Nope?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Labor Union not here, so we will get our update from Mary.
It's been a shorter stretch in the school system as the district had the President's Day holiday over last weekend. But in the week and a half of school since we last saw you, we did have a professional development day for teachers on Friday, February 14th. And across the district there was a variety of important initiatives at each of the buildings, but a couple of critical ones I'll mention was our newly formed Curriculum Council met, which was an opportunity for shared professional learning in the Understanding by Design curriculum framework, which is the framework that the district will be using to articulate all curriculum moving forward, and it's sort of the industry standard. So it's an opportunity for all of our teacher leaders who oversee specific curriculum components to share that practice to ensure that we have fidelity of implementation K-12 and across content areas. So that was an exciting step for us. Additionally, our high school science team was really looking specifically at the work that they're doing around science and the new state assessment for science, how they can use what we refer to as interim assessments to expose their students to the expectations of the high school science assessment and monitor their growth. Additionally, our district Safe School Climate Coordinators met in the last week, and each building has an established Safe School Climate Coordinator who ensures that we have a prompt and thorough and consistent response to any concerns that are noted regarding climate-related factors in our district. So we meet on a quarterly basis to ensure that we can share our practices and make sure that our responses are consistent. And then finally, we are really focused on preparing for, although it's the end of February, our May summative assessments where our students will demonstrate their learning. So while it's a few months away, we begin the process of planning now, working with the state, ensuring our student population is registered appropriately in their systems. All of the implementation materials have arrived and been distributed to the schools, and the individual administrators are planning trainings for their staff, and we'll be rolling that out in the coming weeks to ensure that we're ready to go and our students can demonstrate their success in May.
Okay.
Mary, safe space, is that a physical location where students go? Is that...
No, I mentioned that there are Safe School Climate Coordinators, which means that they're responsible for implementing the district's Safe School Climate Plan, which is in line with Connecticut's legislation requiring every school system to have a system of climate coordinators to receive any reports of any mean-spirited behavior between students or anything like that.
So it's not a physical location where a student can go if
While
life
those
is-
exist in some of our schools, this is more about the personnel who oversee those processes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
And then we get update from the schools. Hey, Andy, I didn't see you guys say anything.
Good evening, everybody. While it was a short time, as Mary just mentioned, there's a lot going on at Memorial, highlighted by the random acts of kindness, which were everywhere in the building. Mrs. Midori did an awesome job highlighting them in our Cheetah Pride Press. So nice to see our kids going throughout the building, just making everybody's day a little bit better with the smallest kind gestures. And if I'd have to say, we do that all the time, but last week it was really highlighted. We also had our PE sessions, which I thought were very personalized to our grade levels and very productive. And we are this week in our mid-year goal conferences with teachers, looking at the goals that we had set for our learners and for our professional practices. So we're busy with that this week.
So at the high school, we've been very busy since our last meeting. On Wednesday, both the high school and I'm sure Jay will talk a little bit about the middle school, we're welcoming Sandy Hook Promise to our school. We'll be conducting 2 assemblies, one with the 9th and 10th grade, and one with the 11th and 12th grade to highlight their program, which is really to continue on our safe school climate that Ms. Clark mentioned about stopping up bullying and having students having a connection, not just with adults in school, but with their peers, so that if there are issues with students, they're generally our first line of defense. They tell us what's going on, so for peers not to be isolated. And that's really part of a 2-year commitment with this group. So we're working with them this year and then more so next year. We've had some really great honors at our school. We just announced our CAS, our Connecticut Association of Schools Art Award winners, Grace Mikulowski and Lauren Menzel. They'll be honored at the AquaTurf in April. And our CAS CIAC Scholar Athlete Award winners were also just chosen. It is Noah Gibson and Maggie Donahue, and they'll be honored at a banquet in May at the CIAC. The scheduling window, obviously the Power School poll is closed, so Matt and I will be working to get numbers as our scheduling process continues to look at courses for next year. Our PD last Friday was very fruitful. We spent a lot of time working on our 2-year NEAS report and talking about how teachers are assessing and monitoring our core values and beliefs. And lastly, I'll let Mr. Warner talk about the manufacturing pipeline.
Thanks.
Yes.
There hasn't been a substantial amount of change. Right now we're still talking to the juniors of interest for next year. We did schedule have an introductory meeting with someone from the Youth Manufacturing Initiative who presents at RAM. She's coming here on March 12th during our X-Block to present to any junior who's interested. We've been offering sign-ups to them for the past week, 2 weeks, to try to show them exactly what the program offers, what it might look like. I have some actual images from RAM so they can see what this workspace might look like over at RAM, and to try to answer as many questions as possible. So at this point, I think we have about 4 or 5 students who've shown interest, who've signed up to attend, and we're just going to keep advertising to get as many as we can.
Is there specific areas in that program that they're focusing on?
Not necessarily just manufacturing itself. I mean,
In general,
there are different components, milling. They have a lot of nice equipment over at RAM that they've been able to purchase and update through grants from the state. Everything, they're starting to transition to more computer-based touchscreen technologies as well, about laser cutting. I mean, it's not a traditional wood shop. Everything is steel manufacturing, everything. So it's a nice option and variation from what the traditional process has been for education for students. So hopefully with this first year, more kids get interested and want to check it out.
Good.
Is there an enrollment drop that allows East Hampton students to go?
Not necessarily. This is only the second year.
Enrollment drop that allows open something.
I think in general their enrollment for the whole district is declining, but I don't believe that's why they haven't had students involved in this. This is only their second year offering the program, and they just want to get more people into the manufacturing pipeline in general. We were offered the spots through RAM, but at the support of the manufacturing pipeline. Because RAM's in a different district, they didn't have to accept our students, but they want as many people going in this direction as possible. So it's nice we're offered that avenue and we're allowed to take that avenue.
Great week at Center School, ran an act of kindness, and it was nice to see how our small acts of kindness extend beyond the walls of Center School. Finn, who is the national ambassador of Kids Heart Challenge, actually sends a personalized message to Center School, so kudos to Ms. Robinson for turning the Kids Heart Challenge into an entire unit for our PE students, and she's looking to extend that within the department. But it was nice to get a personal thank you and see how it impacts the lives of young children on Finn. Also, we were collecting some items for hero boxes for Valentine's Day to send to troops, and we got a nice write-up in the newspaper. A special thank you from Colchester Eye Care, who organized the collection of these items, and we dropped them off. So it's nice to see the recognition for supporting our troops as well, and those of us within our school system, but also those abroad. For World Read Aloud Day, I actually just connected with State Representative Irene Haynes, who wanted to visit Center School on Tuesday. So she will be coming in to see the activities that are taking place and maybe even read a book to some of our students.
All right, middle school scheduling, my favorite thing. It is well underway. Mr. Fielding and myself have met pretty much every Thursday since mid-December. And we feel like we're in a really good spot, a little bit further off than we typically are, so that's always a good thing. Volleyball's underway as well. It's our in-season sport with over 70 plus participants. Donna Roberts taking on the bulk of them. I know there was a question, forgive me for not being here at the last board meeting, I was under the weather. Mr. Kissinger mentioned that there was a question about participation rates. And statistics around participation at the middle school, so we do keep documentation around that. Currently, and this is to date, we had 291 out of our 468 students participate in some kind of outside activity. And keep in mind, we still have several activities to go. Drama is still not calculated in that. It's a big portion of it, softball, baseball, etc. And the bike club. So I think we'll be well on our way to getting over 75% of our students doing something in the middle school level, because we know how important that is to their well-being and social interactions. Still preparing for the Little Mermaid play, as I just mentioned. Hope Church, Night to Shine. What an amazing event! If you haven't been yet and you'd like to volunteer, Hope Church puts on an event called Night to Shine. It's run by the Tim Tebow Foundation, and what it is, it's a prom for students and adults with disabilities. And we were fortunate enough, honored enough to be able to host for the past 3 years the event, and it is just absolutely amazing to watch over 200 volunteers descend upon the school, and within, I'd say, 3 hours, put together a legit prom. So very fun, very exciting event there. Last but not least, excited to say thanks to Mary, our advisory group that meets students and staff called United Panthers. They kind of develop some grassroots ideas and concepts that are important to them in their community and school, and what they want to talk about and learn more about. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the LGBTQ community. At first, I pushed that back and said, we're not going to talk about it just yet. I want to make sure our staff are trained. I mentioned that to Mary, and she was nice enough to connect us with an individual at CREC that does that training. So March 13th, we're going to be bringing in someone from CREC to do a 3-hour training for our staff to make sure that they're equipped to be able to properly answer questions and run that PD.
Okay. Questions for the schools, anyone? Okay. Audience of citizens, open up. Any comments, questions? Anybody? We'll have more. Yes, Mary.
Yes, Mary Ann Bossler, 56 William Drive. I just wanted to offer some comments on preempting the budget discussion I guess you guys are all going to be having this evening. I just wanted to share my perspective on the budget that's been presented and what I'm hoping is put forward from this body to the budget process. Since 2012, when the high school renovation project was passed, there has been relentless and intense political pressure year over year to reduce the education annual operating costs. the result has been devastating cuts that have reduced the district's ability in a number of areas and made us less competitive, have diminished the opportunity for students, and have really forced some very difficult choices. The result has been the loss of 8 teachers in recent years, that positions have not been restored. And the overall student population continues to, at best, be steady, if not increase slightly, which is really detrimental if we don't begin to put forward a budget that reflects the actual needs of the community. And I really, the community looks to the Board of Education to be that strong advocate for what is needed for the education budget and for the needs of all students in the district. Not to try to balance them and say, well, we can only afford 1 teacher, so what child do we like best? I think that there's an opportunity and responsibility of the Board of Education when we put forward the budget, that it is what the district needs and what the board believes is the best that it can do to support the needs of the district. The first budget put forward should not be the one that can pass a single vote. That's not the point. The point is to put forward the best budget that meets the needs of the district. And if in fact the other political bodies that have an opportunity to review the budget need to feel the need that they need to reduce it before it gets put to the voters, that's on them. But if the Board of Ed puts forward a budget that doesn't meet the needs of the district before you even move it to the other boards, you're preemptively harming what the community has an opportunity to vote on. And it will be on you, not on the Board of Finance, not on the Town Council, but it will be on the Board of Education that is not supporting the needs of the district. And I would urge this body, when you're considering this budget, even if the budget that's put forward from your board tonight is larger than what the other boards may be expecting or what you think may be palatable to them, you are responsible to the community to put forward the best budget, and not to try to anticipate preemptively what will pass in budget. And at the end of the day, if this board doesn't put forward budgets that support the needs of education, the community will look at this board as being anti-education. It's not going to be on the Board of Finance and Town Council if they don't have to make cuts that you've already made.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Yeah, Martha, second? Jim. All those in favor?
Question, Chris?
Oh, yep, sorry.
On the minutes, I believe, right near the end, in the Audit of City, it's number 17. It's written here, it's Kurt Kominski. I believe it's Kurt Komisky.
I'll fix that.
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
give that. Rosemary's not here this evening, but I'll make sure that's adjusted.
And we wrote Martha into taking minutes.
Congratulations,
So,
Martha.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So, okay, so with that correction, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi, Amy, welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to be nice to Amy. She's been ill, but needed to be here for the budget, so thank you for making it here.
There's a bottle of Purell after everybody greets Amy.
She's not contagious.
Should we just pour it on her?
Yeah.
Probably so.
Put a little ring
Or
of
maybe we'll
Purell
pour it
on
on
it.
Nancy.
Okay, so now we have some more fun things. I'm going to turn this over for some recognition.
Yes, we're going to
tonight.
introduce several students who have done some great achievements in the arts. But before we do that, if you look over my head, the screen is, the camera is slightly adjusted to the right, and I take full responsibility for that because at the last meeting there was a little annoying reminder at the bottom of the screen, it's time to replace the bulb. So We didn't even have to wait a whole meeting. The very next meeting, the bulb has been replaced. However, in the process of moving this very heavy table, setting up the staging to replace the bulb, the camera is off, the projector's off by 1.5 inches or so.
And it's driving you crazy.
I can't look at it. Thankfully, I will be looking at
No one
these
else has a
screens.
problem.
If you start to feel seasick in the middle, and we're showing off some student art tonight, so it's a shame that you're going to have to kind of tilt your head. But look at the screens if you start to feel dizzy at any point during the presentation tonight.
Take your advice.
Yes, please. So, we're going to start with, and some of our students are not here tonight. A few have fevers and are staying home. So, for our elementary students who were recognized by the Connecticut Association of Schools as Artists of the Year, if you are here, Madison, Reed, William, and Daniel, please come right down here, stand in front of our bell. Come on. You can slide forward a little, don't stay. Come on.
You told
Yes,
me.
you did very well. Oh, yes. So it looks like our 2 memorial students are not here. Andy, you can give them their plaques later on. And our 2 memorial students were Reed and Madison. So we will now move to our center school students.
Can the camera see us over here?
Yeah, why don't you come over this side? Yes.
No, I read it. Yeah. Okay.
All right. so
Okay.
From Ms. Gould, I'm proud to announce the 2 winners of the Cass Arts Award. When asked to select a student for the Cass Arts Award, William immediately came to mind. Not only is William a naturally gifted musician, but he puts forth great effort and hard work to be a leader in his section. He has an amazing ear and can play almost any song after hearing it once or twice. His technical skills have continued to improve as he works on teaching others how to play high notes on the clarinet. William is one of the finest young musicians I have ever worked with. It was an honor to be able to nominate him for the Cass Award. Congratulations. And from Ms. Fawcett. Danny Sullivan is a very deserving young man for the Cass Arts Award. Danny puts forth a maximum effort in everything he does and perseveres through to the final product. Danny's personality and creativity are a great addition to the class. His love of movies and superheroes comes to life through his work. Sure. It has been a pleasure to work with Danny in 4th and 5th grade, and I look forward to continuing to develop his inspirational work. Congratulations, Danny.
William, would you do me a favor? Would you introduce your guest here tonight to the board?
Huh?
Would you? Who's here with you? Who's here with you tonight?
My mom.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming. And Daniel, you have a couple people here tonight. Would you introduce them as well?
My mom and my dad.
Have your families come up.
Parents, come right up and take pictures. Don't be shy.
All right, so here for a second. I'm going to take one of the flash too. Okay, 1, 2, 3, slow. Thanks.
Don't move yet because we're going to take some more pictures.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Hey, stay up here, get one with mom.
So if you do look at the picture, I know it's a little hard to see, but both gentlemen are sporting some nice outfits at this the banquet. William, can you explain those glasses that you have on for this event? I was kind of curious when I saw this picture.
same glasses here, but I had my face painted right before this picture.
So that's your forehead with the painting. Oh, great, nice, excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to a couple of middle school students, Robert Fowler and Sophia Oresco. I know Sophia's here. Come right down, Sophia. And we've been recognizing different students each month. We started with the Memorial School, and then we did Center School. This month we're recognizing some middle school artists. And later on we have some contest winners, but our students of the month, Robert and Sophia, and I think I have, this is Robert's work, this is Sophia's. It's hanging up in the central office right now. If she doesn't claim it, I'm going to move it right into my office in the new town.
Come on, you beat me to it.
Maybe we'll have a little auction for your artwork. Thanks to our called pastor art teacher who joined us as well. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Both students were selected because they show both great enthusiasm for art. Sophia's very meticulous with her work. Always, looks at it very closely before she's satisfied with every brush stroke or pencil mark. They show passion and love for all the art that they create.
Nice. Congratulations. Sophia, you have a big fan up here tonight. Would you mind introducing that?
I have my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister here.
Thank you very much. Come right down. Come right down.
Okay, 1, 2.
Bob, got one?
And now we have some middle school students who are winners of the Connecticut Scholastic Art Awards. We have an honorable mention, we have a silver key winner, and we have a gold key winner. I know Charlotte is home with a fever, but I think Amber is here, and Maya is here too. Great. Come right down, please. So here's Maya's work, and it looks a little skewed there, but if you look on the TVs, it's a much better version of her work. So we'll start with Maya. Mr. Pastor, if you'd introduce Maya to us.
This is Maya, 8th grade student. She worked and decided to take a still life photo working from her painting outside the tree. I would say to all my students, again, these girls, again, both passionate for what they do. Again, they take their time, look at their work. They spend weeks and weeks before really submitting their work until they were satisfied. So I think it showed with the end result.
Great. And we have Charlotte unfortunately has a fever, but Amber was a gold key winner. Can you just explain what it takes to be a gold key? To receive the Gold Key Award?
Well, it's strange because as I walk through that gallery over at the University of Hartford, sometimes I know we submit photos online and they'll judge that from the photo that we send. So looking at some of the work over there, sometimes you're surprised. I'm like, how did this not receive gold or silver? But I think with Amber's work, she spent a lot of time, and we tried to make it pretty much our vision was realism. And I felt that she accomplished this work enough to earn that gold key. So I think it's a matter of the detail that we put into the work.
Great. Maya, if you would introduce your guest here tonight.
I have my mom, my stepdad, and my stepmom.
Great, thank you for coming. And Amber.
I have my mom here and my dad.
Thank you for coming. It's nice to know in the state of Connecticut we have some just outstanding artists, so congratulations to the both of you, or all three of the students who received awards.
Yes, I was just going to add, I think our art program, and Mr. Pastor in particular, really have helped these students shine, so I just want to thank him publicly. Thank you very much, Mr. Pastor.
Yeah.
Somebody from the front.
Oh, I'm too busy looking at the pictures.
Can we all squeeze in just a little bit? Thank you. All right, 1, 2, 3, and one with flash. 1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you.
Do you want to take your Sure. That. Okay. Good job, everybody.
I can't look.
Really that bad. Wow.
Yeah, almost. It's okay. We'll leave that one.
That was me. That was my fault. Okay, now we are going to move on. We have Amy. We had moved. Oh, and Amanda made it. Just in time. Sorry?
You're supposed to say that with enthusiasm.
Yes, she made it. Yay! Budget. We moved that item up to now. Yes. Yeah. So, I am going to start by actually turning it over to Paul and Karen for a little, maybe some updates and news on where things are at.
Sure. So, as board members and audience aware, the board must approve a budget tonight to send to the town hall. So we have it in place for March 1 so that the other town committees can start reviewing it. Mr. Lambert asked at our last meeting if we had any insurance updates. And we explained typically we don't get insurance updates until May, sometimes late May, even after the budget is passed. However, for those that don't realize this, we actually participate in the state of Connecticut health insurance plan. It's a number of municipalities and state workers are on this plan. We've been a member of this plan for 2 years now. And moving into next year, they've changed carriers from United Healthcare to Anthem. So this is something that the state sends out for bids just to see if there's better deals out there. So the plan itself will not change for our employees. However, the agency covering it will be Anthem as opposed to United. Because they've done that process.
I was just going to, this is the same, you talk about municipal. There's the school and
the school and our town are both
in
this as well. So because they went out to bid, they've already been able to determine a rough estimate of what our increase will be. Typically, we don't get any sense of that until May or later, like I explained. But because of this process, we have a little bit more information. So in addition to kind of knowing a ballpark, and you know, we found this out Friday at 4 o'clock. We got a confirmation email this morning letting us know that it is preliminary, but it does give us something to work with at this point. So in addition to the increase we were anticipating this year, we were also informed that Middlesex County would get a surcharge on top of that increase. Every county was getting a surcharge, but some counties were paying more. Middlesex was paying the most at a 7% on top of the increase, but that 7% was going to be broken down over 2 years. So whatever our increase would be, we would add 3.5% this year. Whatever next year's increase was, we would add 3.5% onto it. So we budgeted for 10.5% increase, considering that a 7% increase is about typically what we've been getting from the state. And with that 3.5 surcharge on top, we've anticipated about a 10.5% increase. Because they have switched to Anthem, maybe in the bidding process, Anthem has come in lower than 7%. We've been informed that it probably will be around 3%. And that 7% surcharge over 2 years is now dropped to a 1% surcharge over 2 years. So a 0.5% each year. So instead of a 10.5% increase, we are now anticipating about a 3.5% increase. That does have to be verified. They're giving us as a preliminary figure, but if they're floating out a lower number now, I don't anticipate it being too much different. In anticipation of, and there's some unknowns, because people typically hear Anthem and like Anthem, it is possible that some of our employees who are not on our plan may come to our plan, so that's something to consider. But we are anticipating about a $250,000 savings in insurance. Now that's as of today, and usually we don't know that until May, and we've never really anticipated or benefited from a savings in insurance because we've estimated 6-7%, and it's always come in around that. But our 10.5%, which we felt this year, because they kept advertising that surcharge and a typical increase, that 10.5% is probably going to be 3.5%. So what we figure is leaving a little bit of dollars in there for people that will switch to Anthem. I'm anticipating about $250,000 different. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Just to refresh, I've asked Mary to just review quickly with you the 4 positions that were kind of floating out there. One of your assignments was to ask the principals if they would restore positions that were not currently in the budget, what they would be. Mary's going to give you a little bit of information from that. And then a few board members asked, what does the middle school schedule look like for next year under scenarios? We're adding the world language in an attempt to reduce, especially the 6th grade study halls. Jason will give you a brief update on what the middle school schedule looks like. So Mary, let me turn it over to you.
Sure. Starting, we went by building, so I'll follow that model. And I'll start with Memorial School, or numbers. So the position there that Mr. Gonzalez spoke to you about was a kindergarten position and restoring our team back to 7 kindergarten teachers. The goal there to ensure that we have smaller class sizes than we've experienced in kindergarten. We currently average about 22 kindergarteners per class, and typically districts budget and plan to have smaller class sizes in kindergarten than in any other grade level. Oftentimes this is also, they'll have those smaller class sizes plus a paraeducator who's dedicated to that classroom. Very common in kindergarten across all different kinds of districts. So currently our teachers are managing potentially 22 kindergartners and do not have those teaching assistants in the classroom. When we think of the age of these learners, some are turning 5. As they enter school, they're not independent with many of their habits, even bathroom habits at that age, so it can be very challenging to meet the needs of them as young people as well as their academic needs. And so that is really the environment that we feel we need to impact at Memorial School in order to ensure that our students, as they enter the district, have individualized instruction, and that the teachers have a reasonable task in front of them. That is an investment in long-term growth for those learners. At Center School, in addition to the positions that are identified in the budget, the position that Mr. Sullivan identified as a support in growing that program was grade 5. As our current 4th grade class moves over to 5th grade, they are currently experiencing large class sizes. There are 6 sections in 4th grade now, approximately with an average of 26 students per class. And we're looking there at Center to reduce those class sizes by adding a 7th section. So they've already been through 1 year as 4th graders with those larger class sizes. That was a difficult decision last year as they moved over to Center School, and so as they head up to 5th grade, trying to relieve some of the pressure and ensure that, again, with smaller class sizes, the teachers can provide appropriate instruction for those 5th grade skills and the content that they're working towards there. Moving along to the middle school, Mr. Lehman identified there the addition of a health teacher with the understanding that this position is really an opportunity to support our 6-12 teaching and learning continuum in health, that it would allow us to support a transfer position to our high school health team. We have increased graduation requirements for health. We have the peak population of the school district in 8th grade and 9th grade next year, so both buildings have a need to provide and meet the needs for PE and health. And so this would allow us to maintain those services at the middle school and add services to the high school, which is understaffed in this area. Additionally, it would reduce study halls at the middle school. And I think most importantly, when we think about health and wellness, we know there is a tremendous body of research and evidence in this area that at the middle level is when students really need support and proactive learning around their wellness, how they manage the demands of school, how we can engage in preventative practices with them when we think about vaping and other at-risk behaviors. We want to make sure that we have a full curriculum for our middle schoolers that will prepare them effectively for high school, and those personal self-management issues that they need to be addressing. And finally, at the high school, Mr. Werner identified, in addition to the math department, a full-time math teacher. The math department is the one department that is a department of 5 at this time. This is a position that we're looking to restore to the high school to ensure that we have adequate staffing in our high school mathematics. Again, when we're getting to high-level math, we want to make sure that we're able to maintain appropriate class sizes, and in addition, be able to diversify and increase our math offerings. We've put a lot of emphasis in this area. We've put a tremendous amount of work into our programming for math and are seeing gains in our math performance data. We want to make sure that we're positioned to carry that over into the high school. Again, this is proactive because when we made difficult choices in the past, we were responding to student population, but we have a very large class that's expected to be arriving on the shores of the high school next year. Our 9th grade class will be, we still have to wait and see how many students that we potentially will see select other high schools. We're hoping that more of them will stay with us with this position, and if so, it's a substantially larger class, and we will need to provide adequate staffing for our high school environment. So that's a quick summary of those 4 positions that you heard in a little bit more detail in our last meeting, but we're able to answer any questions you might have about any of those positions.
These are, before I know, Jason, you're going to give, these are not new positions, these are restoring ones that we've lost over the years.
Yes. Yes. Our K team, our 5th grade team, have had 7 sections in the past, and certainly the math department was previously at the Department of 6. And our health staffing has shifted at times, but we're looking to ensure with the new graduation requirements and the large class sizes that we have the student body to meet those needs.
If we assume that a new hire, comes in and they select the health plan as a new employee, all-in cost 75 to 80,000 roughly.
Yeah, we're using 76,000.
Okay.
That what that is step 1 salary, master's level, and like a 2-person insurance. Like we said last time, if they're 23-year-old and on their parents' insurance, it could be less. But I think we're kind of using that 0.24 or 76,000.
Great, thank you.
Mary Ann, you may have mentioned no para-health or kindergarten classes, and no one's applying, and no one wants the position to be para-health. Is that not?
No, unfortunately, we don't have those positions.
Oh,
so
okay.
we would love to staff those classrooms.
yeah.
They're not currently in the budget.
Okay.
So we do have paraeducators who work at Memorial School, but we do not have dedicated paraeducators in our kindergarten classrooms whose sole responsibility is to assist that teacher and support the learners. So in many districts,
Is that a certified position?
non-certified,
Non-certified.
but not currently. Our kindergarten team speak on their behalf because they have been faithful. They have been faithful members of this budget process over the last few years, advocating annually for those positions, and I think that has not yet occurred. So they did come out in support earlier of this additional K position, and I think are hoping that that would meet some of those needs. But again, in many districts, you might find class sizes in kindergarten of 18 with a dedicated teaching assistant in the room. And that has not been included in our district's district's budget process in the past, so.
And for many years or just recently, did we ever have any para-help at the kindergarten level?
Not in, have we ever? Yes, but not in some time, in a dedicated fashion. And there's been a reduction in the overall paraeducator. I don't have those statistics, but I can assure you that overall, when we look at our total number of paraeducators in the district, there's been a reduction over the last 10 years. And that, as other expenses have increased, have reduced that service to our teachers and students.
So that kindergarten teacher would get us to about a 19 class size?
It would be premature for me
We don't know the exact numbers, but
we're just beginning the kindergarten registration process, so we should start to have some projections soon. But based on the last 2 years, that's what we're hoping for.
I was I was wondering if either Mary or Mr. Salk could speak to how an additional fifth grade teacher would fit in with the team teaching model that is in the fifth grade.
Sure. So my first year at Center, that was the case that we had 7 sections of fifth grade. So as you know, we have a partnership model. Obviously, that does not work with 7. So what we do is we create what's called a triple. So instead of going backwards on the model and having one teacher with one class all day, we organized it in a fashion that there are 3 teachers that work as a team. So one teacher sort of specializes in ELA, one teacher specializes in math, science, and social studies, and the third teacher teaches all subject areas. So if there's a morning class with the ELA teacher, they go to the triple person, or triple teacher in the afternoon that teaches the opposite subject area, and vice versa on the other side. So we are able to accommodate that. We have in the past. We've worked through all the details, such as parent conferences. How's their equity with that? How's their equity in terms of homeroom teachers? So it was a very productive model when we did use it to make sure that we kept with the model of making sure that we're semi-departmentalized in 5th grade, just so that the teachers can start to become content experts. But at the same time, students are beginning to switch classes to prepare them for that next step.
Jason, you want to talk about that breakdown of the schedule? Uh-oh, he's got props. I'm nervous.
Is this going to be like a Saturday Night Live?
No, I just said I'm nervous.
A little bit more cowbell, yeah. Take a minute.
What's that?
Sorry, it's kind of small. It's difficult to get. Anybody want to copy?
Jason, just a couple for Chris.
Thank you.
So as I started out in my attempts to think about this weekend, how I'm going to eloquently deliver how we desperately need this position in our school system to remain, I was really happy with Mrs. Dosser's commentary that we need to really push for what we need in the school district, not what we want, but what we need. The reason I brought this today was while I was having that conversation with myself this weekend, I stumbled across a bell that my great aunt gave me. She likes to take things from her house for my birthday and wrap them up and send them to me. So this is what I got when she found out that I was working in Belltown. So I started thinking about that and thinking about Bevan Bells, and I just happened to look at their website and look at the research, or look at their about section. And in the very first sentence it said, highest of quality. And I thought to myself, this isn't a bell, this isn't a Bevan Bell, this isn't the bell I want my bell ringers ringing when they cross, and I want to make sure that our bell ringers are having the highest quality experience here at our schools. Looking at this, I'll kind of go through the details. If you look at the first column here, that is the ideal situation where we have 3 world language teachers and 3 health PE teachers. This gives us an opportunity to minimize our study halls down to 1 study hall for 6th grade 2 for 7th grade, and 3 for 8th grade. This would just be an atypical schedule for any one of those grade level students. Just to put some statistics around it, because I know many of you love that. This would mean for an average 6th grader, they would sit through 1,620 minutes of study hall throughout the course of the year. That's on top of the 27-minute flex that we have where we use that for enrichment, things like that. 7th grade would be 3,240, and same for 8th grade. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. That's good for kids. The next one, the middle column there, provides you a sample schedule of 3 world language teachers and 2.6 PE health teachers. As you can see in bold are some of the changes. Again, giving us each 2 study halls in each grade level. So again, 3,240 minutes of study hall for each one of those students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Lastly, and feel free to interject at any time. Lastly, in the right column, you see that is a sample schedule with still only 2 world language teachers and 2.6 health PE teachers. That leaves us with 5 study halls for 6th grade, 5 study halls for 7th grade, and 2 study halls for 8th grade, simply because we still need to be able to provide them as much world language as possible so that they may be able to achieve a higher world language or AP at the high school level.
Are study halls just as long as a regular class
Yes.
timeframe?
So that would put them as 5 at 8,100 minutes a year of just study hall. Personally, when I look at that, I look at my PE health team that I would put up against any team in the country. They're incredible. This is programmatic decimation if we go this route, especially for our right-hand column. This is not helping us move forward. This is not polishing any students' belts. Students are unable to access their academics without mental health and wellness. This is a conversation we have daily, I think K-12 and even in the adult world. From an organization, Speak Up for Kids, 17.1 million out of 74.5 million in the US students have mental health issues. That's more than cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. So I ask of you to please seriously consider making sure that we have that position put in there, as well as it does provide some assistance to the high school to be able to develop their program as in accordance with the ask.
And just a point for the board, the middle schedule is currently what is supported in the budget.
Yes.
I'd just like to piggyback a statistic onto what you said. I don't know if you've seen, I think it came out fairly recently, that suicide is the number 2 cause of death for children ages 10 to 19. Second leading cause of death.
So if we added the vision health, that would put us at this at first.
That would put us
at first.
Yes. And I believe that would also increase.
Yes.
Mary, that would also
High
increase
school.
the high school.
Yes.
Okay.
If I can just add, you'll note that Mr. Lehman included the class sizes as well, so I think that's an important detail.
Thank you.
If you're just noticing that not only is it increased study halls with fewer staff, but class sizes increase pretty significantly as well.
If you look there in parentheses, it says CS next to them. So as you look across, you'll see how that number increases. It's also important to note that there are many times 2 physical education classes in the gymnasium at the same time. So if you have 30 kids plus another 30 kids, it's 60 students participating in what we'd like to have is many high energy movement activities, which can be problematic with that many students in the area.
Thank you, Jason.
Just one quick question. Are the PE classes segregated by grade, or are they intermingled by grade?
So the class itself is segregated by grade. A lot of that has to do with when the classes run, when our lunch waves are, because we have a staggered middle of the day schedule. because of lunches.
It's typical middle school as well, as opposed to
Right.
high school where you'd see cross grade level groupings. It's not
Okay.
common at the middle level.
As we've cut some programs and things have changed, we have had to do more and more of, one PE class is a 6th grade class and one PE class is an 8th grade class. And as you can imagine, the difference sometimes between a 6th grader and an 8th grader is huge, literally.
Yeah.
So that's something we really try to avoid, but it's not always possible.
Okay, because I'm just looking at Friday, again, this is a representative, not an
Yep.
absolute. So you have in period 6, and this is the middle column, but you could be in the left column as well, so the left version. There's 3 PE classes in the same period 6.
It's a sample schedule, so it's not
Okay.
necessarily
So,
going to flow exactly that way.
Right.
Gotcha. So it could be period 4 for one group and so on.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Just clearing that up. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? He's here.
Take my belt.
Okay. Thank you for the bell.
Is that the bell from the Blue Oyster Cult segment on Saturday Night Live? Eight, or?
Okay, so we have some options now. Let's open it up first.
Can I?
General questions.
Okay, great.
Yes.
The 250,000 that you mentioned, Paul, is that after leaving some cushion for potential additional selections of coverage?
Yes, it does,
for
right.
employees who are currently not having coverage through our plan as of now?
Correct. When we moved off the HSA and went to United, some people did not come on the plan. Some people stayed with HSAs with their spouses, some people chose not to come on the plan. I am concerned that because it's an annual plan, people will come to the plan. In fact, over the couple of years when people have heard that, gee, it's a pretty rich plan, we get existing employees joining the plan each year. And we haven't really left a buffer for ourselves. So I think 250 is safe, given the inclination that some will move over to the plan. Yes, please, Karen.
That's really only a $21,000 buffer, so it doesn't even have one new person. Next year, with
It's
a
a small buffer,
3.5% increase, the full cost of covering one family is just $110 below $33,000. So I was a little more conservative. I was using 228, but it's 250 is fine.
Well, again, that kind of just...
It is, it's a big risk for the number of people that we cover and potential changes. I'd also like to add that I assume an increase in the employee cost share for every single group, and there will be 3 significant contracts under negotiation this year, and so that their share of insurance cost is considered equally important to them as pay increases. So it's a risky number no matter what we do.
But at least we have that number now and not the end of May.
Are we gonna have this next year too? Do you think we'll get this information this early next year, or is it too
No.
early to tell?
Typically, we don't get it in May, and I think the reason we knew now is because they changed carriers, and that was an upfront opening up the packages.
I know.
Yeah.
It's very early for us to find out.
It'd be nice if the state would do that, but realistically, no.
And sometimes when a company comes in and they bid a little low, you're happy one year, but then it's a little higher to make up the difference the next year.
Okay.
What type of numbers do you have to give an insurance company if you want to leave them?
You have to be in the state partnership for 3 years before you leave without penalty. So if we wanted, we could go out to bid. Next year.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to find a group coming in at 3-4%. Prior to this, the district had increases anywhere of 13 to 18 to 20%. And the year we switched to the state partnership, we were looking at an increase on the Board of Ed side at 41%. So when you hear the number 3, it's like the superintendent starts doing the happy dance around the room, which I did before people got here.
Yeah.
And then I saw the screen.
Yeah, that's brought it back to reality.
Does Irene have any video of that?
No, yeah. All right, any other general questions overall for Karen, for Paul, for Mary? Yes.
Yeah, I think for Mary, actually. In talking about the PE health position, obviously we know that we need that instruction at the high school to meet requirements. Is there any opportunity, would that allow any opportunity for students to explore subjects as electives, or even, I'm not sure if there would be anything that would lead towards careers, but does it allow for that, or is it really focused on, would it be focused on meeting requirements?
I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know I had this conversation with Eric that if instead of just moving the middle school teacher over 2 periods for health coverage, if we had full-time, what other sample courses would you be able to offer?
Well, I think it would be twofold. It would allow us to ensure that all of our students are meeting the requirements, but then, just kind of looking preliminarily at requests. We'd be able to offer more sections of, for example, we have right now, as I sit here on the 24th of February, 52 students requested team sports, and we offer 1 section of that. All 52 students aren't getting team sports. 61 students want fitness for life, which is an incredibly popular class. All 61 students aren't getting that. So these are courses or electives that would allow us to offer more sections of that, as well as to ensure that we're meeting the requirements of a full-time person.
Excellent. Okay, great. That's good information to have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think overall, our student, you heard from the family and consumer science teacher earlier in November, and we could fill up another teacher's schedule with the requests we get for that. In fact, even the Mandarin course that we were planning to pilot, hopefully that 5 or 6 kids would sign up for. 27 students have indicated an interest in that.
Okay.
I did have another question.
Yeah.
The 5th grade position. And this is truly coming from because I have a 5th grader this year, and I'm seeing academically the rigor that is being asked of him, and I'm really having a hard time trying to wrap my head around a teacher with 26 students in that class trying to get and prepare these students for middle school and for the things that they're being asked to learn. So I was wondering maybe if Mary would talk a little bit about the curriculum side and the things that these 5th graders are being asked to do.
Sure. I think, all of our instruction is aligned in a continuum from kindergarten through 12th grade, aligned to the standards that's expected of students. And I think that, 10 years ago, those standards shifted, and the demands at every level shifted, particularly in math. And it's why it's a major focus for us. You hear me talk a lot about our math instruction and professional learning for teachers. And it was a driver in the decision to, it's not the only driver, but it was a driver in the decision to semi-departmentalize 5th grade, as Mr. Sullivan said, so that the teachers can truly be content area experts. Because what had historically been perceived that 6th grade was really the tipping point where we needed to have teachers departmentalized by the content that they're teaching, really started to see that shift to 5th grade. East Hampton's not unique in having this semi-departmentalized model at the 5th grade level. Some districts do it even younger, but particularly 5th grade, where to be a master of all content areas, literacy, science, math, and social studies, when the demands of what students need to master has become increasingly complex. So we really felt that it was a win-win to move to the partner model, because students are moving from a self-contained elementary model in 4th grade to, by 6th grade, they're in a full team model with different teachers for every subject and a lot of self-management. So we felt that having 2 teachers in 5th grade helped to bridge that developmental step for students, while also allowing our teachers to focus. And I think that's been, bless you, very positively received by students and teachers alike. And it is in response to increased demands at the 5th grade level. Mr. Sullivan, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I, would absolutely concur, and sort of that step up that you do see in mathematics is something that we're focusing on. It's obviously a task in and of itself, and then you add to that just the numbers of students. So we have a new enrollment, so we will be at 5 sections of 26 and then one of 27 come the second week of March. Moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Does everyone have the budget book, the summary, the beginning when we started? Okay. So, superintendent presented us with the budget, $32,345,300 increase over a current year. So we can break this down a couple ways. Without addressing those 4 positions that we just discussed tonight, is there anything in that presented budget that you don't like, you want to add, you want to remove? Questions with the budget presented itself? Let's start with that.
With the decrease of interest in the Mandarin, how are we going to be able to support that at the school level?
Eric, there was a question with the increase in the Mandarin. How is that, are we going to be able to support that?
With what's in that budget? What's in our budget now?
The numbers bear out as 15 for the Mandarin 1 year-long course and 11 for the Mandarin Chinese language and culture. As the budget currently is, I'm not sure we can fulfill both, but I also talking to the students. Many of the students chose both because they want some form of Mandarin.
Okay.
I feel like we're in a really good position to support the elective for year 1. Because if we were to say Mandarin 1 as the year-long course, that really is a 3-year commitment because we would have to offer those students the opportunity to earn 3 credits in the same world language, which is what colleges are asking for our students. So I think as a beginning of a program, I would recommend the Mandarin Chinese language and culture as an elective for students next year.
An elective.
It's a half-year course, it's about $500 per student.
And we can support
We could support that. It's roughly 500, I think, with the 5,000 we've put in for that, we could support that.
Okay.
Anything else with the presented budget? Any other questions, concerns?
I have a question about our special needs students. I remember seeing an article, and this may go on here, Paul, you can answer, in the Liberties a couple of months ago where Portland is looking to adopt a similar program that we have here in our school. And do we have any students from Portland who come to East Hampton that may not be part of the budget if they?
I'm not sure if we can discuss where other students are from.
Yeah, I think just for purposes of confidentiality, we should not necessarily discuss. However, if any town was going to start a program like ours, it's more expensive for them than just the tuition they're paying. They would have to commit to a teacher, a portion of a psychologist, para-educator, a dedicated space. So for the short term, we are anticipating 1 to 2 tuition students. I don't think there'll be a change in that.
So pretty consistent. Okay.
So no indication that we're going to lose 1 or 2 from any town, or if you're planning for a student that maybe the tuition is 150, 200,000, whatever the number is. That's
it's hard to tell now because we could lose 1 and then gain 1.
Yeah.
I'm confident that what we've budgeted for those programs will meet our needs, and if we have a tuition student then or 2 or an extra 1, then all the better.
It's more of a forecast of what you think.
It is a forecast because special ed IEPs change, students' needs change. So as we are now, I think we've budgeted appropriately.
Okay. Other questions? Mark? I know you do.
Well, I think in general, if you're gonna take the discussion we just had about the health insurance changes and.
Yeah, well, I want to get to that.
Right, so
Yes.
if you take that, we set that aside. There's a book full of stuff.
Yeah.
I want to add.
Yeah.
But realistically, that's not practical or feasible given the environment we're in. And I just want to, there's one thing I want to mention. Yes, we have had budget challenges over the past X numbers of years. It would be wonderful if we had an opportunity to provide smaller class sizes across the board and more offerings and different programs. But on balance, I think the education we've provided to the students in the town of East Hampton has been very good, and we've seen a lot of successes. And yeah, things could be better, but I wouldn't even begin to characterize anything we've done in a negative light. Right? And I think to characterize it that way, that we've really, to say that we've even remotely implied that we've shortchanged our students in any way, I think is a mischaracterization. And I think it's unfair to the administration and the faculty and all the other people who volunteer their time and put the effort in to provide our students with the best possible education. I think that's important to say, yes, we could absolutely do better. There's more things we'd love to provide, but I think it's unfair to characterize it in any kind of negative way. I think that's important for me to express it.
Well said.
I have a general question about enrollment, and I understand the need and what we're trying to do for new teachers, but I see a trend of declining enrollment. And if you look at not hiring any new teachers, I think the numbers of students enrolled in our town will drop, balancing off the need and maybe not needing to hire any more teachers over the next couple of years. And I have statistics I could share about families departing our state and going elsewhere, but I'm just wondering if anyone agrees with me on the longevity of the amount of, if we're losing about 50 people a day from our state, and not necessarily from East Hampton, just generically, in time, your teacher, pupil per teacher issue could stop itself in a year or two.
Sure. So, Jim, that's why we do the NESDEC projections. There's a company out of Massachusetts that does the projections. And the last couple of years, they've been pretty accurate. They've determined that, our kindergarten class is going to be, a little bit lower. Instead of 140, we've come in at around 124, 120 the last couple of years, and they're forecasting that. However, the other grades, we're not losing students. Or if we do lose students, other people are moving in. In the last 3 days, we've had 3 families move in.
Is that beyond the Colombian family you mentioned before, or is that including?
No, that includes them. So, we're as students move out, students move in the upper grades. I think what you'll see is if that kindergarten holds true, then each year it's going to be a little bit less. But when we've cut classroom teachers in the past, 3 years ago or 2 years ago when we cut the 8 teachers. That was 5% of our teaching staff. We're not losing 5% of our students at this point. And we don't just keep extra teachers where we don't need them. If it reaches the point where, we've asked for a kindergarten teacher for next year. If the number was extremely low, then we wouldn't necessarily have 7 teachers. We could say, well, wait a minute, maybe we should put that at the 5th grade class. I don't know that. But what I do know is our NESDEC projections have held pretty true since I arrived. And they do it based on the number of live births. They do it based on, the trends in population. And last year, at the end of the year, they were 2 or 3 students off. And that's pretty impressive. So I'm trusting what they're saying for the time being, and that seems the most logical way to budget. I'm not budgeting based on what I'm guessing. I'm budgeting on a company that we're paying a good amount of money to do the projections for us.
And Jim, I'll just comment, I'm just looking at the enrollment from last meeting. This is my second year now on the Board of Ed. Spent 3+ years on the Board of Finance, so we obviously reviewed the Board of Ed budget in that capacity. At the beginning of my time on the Board of Finance, we were hearing about, the enrollment's going to fall, enrollment's going to fall, enrollment's going to fall. If you look at our 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade classes, 144, 143, 155. It really hasn't panned out. Now, your observational point is valid. You'd think, hey, demographics in Connecticut's changing, people are moving out for multiple different reasons, but it doesn't seem like the impact is really hitting us. Now, we have 113 in 1st grade, 125 in kindergarten, so maybe there is some softening into that. But, until we see a consistent trend, I think it's dangerous to be counting on it in that context.
Well, I put on my businessman's cap and looking at, forecast. I do forecasting for a living, and you got to make sure what you're going to make 2 years from now, 3 years from now is valid. But I look at tolls, I look at the $15 an hour minimum wage. Some unions look into that for wage negotiations, and if you get higher wages and companies looking to relocate, leave the state. These are the things I think I'm just trained to think about things that that's who I am. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't forget my business life.
Absolutely.
So I got to look at all those factors.
Yeah.
And United, the United Moving Van Company, has where people are moving to. There's this neat little website of information.
And it's not Connecticut.
No, it's not, exactly.
And that's why we give you monthly enrollment, so you can compare month to month. And I think if you saw 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you saw those classes going down on a monthly level, there would be cause for concern. But those are pretty static.
And if things do take a turn down, let's say over the next couple of years, we're stuck with that higher budget because of Connecticut state law. And that's just how you think. How do you react to? You can't go down in your budget number from the previous year. You're at a certain level of your budget, and unless something drastically happens with enrollment, you can't spend a penny less than the year before.
Sure. Well, I think if you look at this year, if you were to present, if we had declining enrollment even, and we said let's have 2 teachers less total than we have, you would still be significantly higher than last year's budget. So I'm not anticipating that we're going to have such drastic enrollment that you're going to have, you're going to be concerned about the minimum budget requirement. And there are conditions where if you do have a lower enrollment than the year before, you are exempted from the, to that student cost to the minimum budget requirement.
So that could be altered.
Yes. If there's a drastic reduction or a significant change in.
Now, to your point, Chris, I couldn't find a specific of what that drastic is.
A significant change, what their threshold is, I don't know what the state has.
It's odd because keep in mind a lot gets added to the pure pupil cost. Money spent on the school, and the money that's we're paying for the school as well. So it's a complicated formula. We get what our minimum budget requirement is at some point, Karen, during the year.
In the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we've been above it. Even a 1%, 2% budget is going to put you above that.
It includes special ed as being an exemption, so it's a process to go through and get to the right minimum budget.
I wish we were a few weeks longer down the way to see what the Andover's public school system is doing with their budget crisis, with the cuts and slashes that they're, look, I'm not comparing East Hampton to the problems in Andover, but it'd be interesting to see what happens with their request to really slash the budgets.
You're also a regionalized school system.
Yeah, don't they have regionalized schools?
I think with, Andover's part of RAM in
Yeah.
middle school and high school, but this is the $3.6 million budget there is strictly for the elementary school. That's what I implied from the release newspaper. So it's not,
Right, they don't pay tuition to RAM because RAM is its own school district. So the taxpayers pay for the Andover schools and they pay for the RAM schools as well.
Budgets. But I think because it's such a small slice of that community, the shifts aren't that much. They don't have an entire district to work across when they have changes in student population. It's isolated to an elementary school. So it can produce the tipping point comes faster when there's a change. That's a difference, I think, when he's saying it's apples and oranges. It's just one building, basically, that you're looking at.
Amanda?
We've had I remember looking at the graph going back to, you had like enrollment numbers dating back to, like 2010. And for whatever reason, we haven't seen drops. I mean, I teach in Middletown and we are seeing, reductions in numbers of sections and because we lost 8 teachers, we continually hear about very large class sizes, and I think your point about, we're not shortchanging our students, I don't know that you would get parents complaining that their children aren't receiving a good education here, but I don't know how can you do it with 22 and no para.
Yeah.
Like that is like,
I agree with you.
so, I mean, it's, yes, they're getting a good education, but I don't know how they do it. So I think it's a very reasonable ask to be looking to add those, we lost 8 and you're talking about 4
Restoring,
positions,
yeah.
restoring, including now added requirements on top of it. So.
Okay, so why don't we then look at, with this new insurance information, and what impact that has in relation to that budget and those positions. So numbers wise, and anyone want to address that and where that would put us? Karen or Paul or?
Do you want me to share a spreadsheet with that information or not?
Yeah. Is that you guys, you want to see if those 4 positions identified, if they were in, what it would look like? Okay, so that would be the kindergarten, the 5th grade, the middle school PE health, and the high school math. So modifying the budget with the new insurance information, but adding those 4 in. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll give Karen a minute while she's doing that. Any other questions? Now that we are here on the insurance in these positions, anyone want to make a comment or question on those?
I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay, prediction. Here we go, Mark. I want to hear it.
Predict that if we add in we added 4 teachers
Yeah.
to address 1 for each school, that the total budget increase will go from 3.75 to 3.92.
Okay, that's your prediction.
I said 3.93 earlier.
Oh, okay.
He's right.
Is he? I was just going to say, I hope he's not right. Oh, Mark. Yeah. Okay, so you want to review that? So by making the adjustments in the health insurance, adding those 4 positions to Paul's presented budget would bring it to a 3.92? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we start there? Discussion, thoughts, comments on that from the board?
Well, I'd like to focus on, actually, someone in the audience spoke, Mary Ann Dossler. She's not here anymore, but she had a great point. For me personally, I feel the weight of the responsibility of doing what we think is right for all students in this district. And, you know, to sit here and 2 years ago, have to let a math teacher at the high school go so that now we have it's unequal. You have 6 science teachers, 6 history, 6 English, and then 5 math. To me, that makes absolutely no sense. So, to me, that's a non-starter. That's doing our students a disservice, in my opinion.
Oh, when there were less students in math back then, where that teaching was cut before my time.
No, we cut a science teacher, we cut a math teacher, we cut an English teacher. We've been able to add back the English teacher, we've been able to reduce the labs for science. Science went from 7 to 6. But we've just dealt with bigger math classes and or reduce some of the math electives that kids. The offerings that kids have.
So to me, it's important to bring that back, bring that equal. I think that's important. I'm extremely disturbed and have been, especially because I do have a middle schooler, so I see exactly you know, the impact on a student there. You know, to reduce instructional time through study halls, it just makes talk about a disservice to the students. That is also something that just is monumentally important to me. You know, I understand completely the need at the high school for the additional PE health instruction to meet requirements, but what does that do to the middle school, to the students at the middle school? So they're stuck again, back to the partial teacher and all that, throw study halls at them. They do not need these study halls in middle school. They shouldn't have them, frankly, and that to me is a disservice. So that is very, very important to me, to restore a health position, which we also had lost, in 2017, I think it was. I mean, we're going back several years now with these restorations. You know, we've survived, and the students have survived, but are they, you know, are they thriving? Are we doing what we feel is the best, you know, for the students? So those positions to me are extremely important, and the others are too, frankly. To do what we think, you know, is in the best interest of all the students in our district, not just the students who may be looking at four-year colleges and taking AP courses. What about, you know, the other students? What do their electives look like? You know, maybe some of these PE health electives, the culinary. I mean, that's a whole other topic that I would love to, you know, talk about someday. Expanding those types of electives that can also lead to, you know, a spark for a career for some kids who maybe don't want to go to, you know, the four-year sort of route. And to me, it's important to think of all students. So those things are really important, I think, to make sure that we, you know, are supporting everyone through these restorations, basically.
Nancy, not to put you on the spot, I know your first meeting, but I know you've been involved over the years. You know what's going on.
I think, especially in the last 2 weeks, I've sort of, knowing this is coming, spent a lot of time thinking about these 4 positions without the information regarding the insurance that we got tonight, obviously, and really struggling with how to prioritize and which one was the most important. I taught kindergarten for 6 years. I probably only had maybe 17 kids in my class. I had a full-time para for all of my years of teaching. So I think addressing this class size with our youngest learners, a class size of 26 or 27 is outrageous anywhere. I also have a middle school student and am very much concerned about the study hall issue, and I think, you know, I struggled with the idea of large class sizes versus non-instructional time. I think that's a major issue that needs to be considered, and I think the math position at the high school, I wasn't even sure where to go with this, because I really think that it would be important for us to consider putting them all in, and I think that we were sort of given a little bit of a gift tonight. But I to echo Nancy's point, I think that you know, we need to look at across the board, and I think that we need to consider all 4 of them at this point.
Karen, with you there. So the 3.92, what is the dollar amount of that? Oh, I can't look at a crooked screen, I'm sorry.
It's $32,399,300.
32,399, 300. Okay. So we're at a point, unless there's more questions or thoughts or ideas, I mean, we could start with a motion and go from there. I know on our agenda there is a preset motion, so we could put that amount that Karen just gave us of 32,399,300. So I'll open it up if anyone wants to make a motion, and we can make discussion, or do we still have more questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Board of Education 2020-2021 budget in the amount of $32,399,300.
Okay, motion. Is there a second to that? Martha? Okay. Now we will open that up. Discussion, questions?
I have some discomfort
Okay.
with going above our 3.75. Not that I'm,
Well, okay,
and
sorry.
not that I'm discounting the value of any one of the four positions. Because I've been thinking since we started the discussion, we could fit 3 in, and that would work. How do I determine which one of the 4 doesn't get in? And I frankly haven't gotten to an answer on that yet. But I have a little bit of, I have some reservations about it. The perception of going through this process, of saying, okay, we put together a budget that's already a significant increase based on prior years, and we'll face challenges, whether it's from the other boards or our community. But I'm not 100% on board with it, I guess is the best way to put it. I still don't know how I'm going to vote.
Yeah.
But I have some reservations.
Okay. And I, if I could just comment on that, I think that you said, we had the 375, and again, that's the superintendent's recommendation.
No, I understand.
It's not our budget yet until we vote. My first thought hearing the insurance thing is this is an opportunity for us to restore and get back to what your original comments were about being able to provide more. I see this as an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
But I see your point. I do agree, again, perception.
I think it's really going to be up to us, and one of the reasons why I think the PR communications committee is so pivotal this year is to get this message out to the community. And I think that we're going to have to take a really big role in getting this out and making people understand the reasons why it's so hard to choose between those 4 positions. You're right, Mark. How do you choose? How do you choose between those 4 things? I think it's going to be up to us to really get the word out to the community and our justification why we think this is so important for our students and our community. Sorry.
Good closing.
I know.
She's fading. Other comments, questions on that motion?
Sympathy.
I know, yeah.
To Mark's point about the increase, is it up to us to let the public know, because with the grant list being such an anemic increase and the budget spending a lot higher, there will be a tax increase I cannot see without to the taxpayers. Is that our job to let the public know, or is that?
Once our budget goes through the Board of Finance and the Town Council, they then set a referendum, which will have those final numbers. of what any increases or not will be.
And at that point, someone reading that can say, okay, we can expect higher taxes.
Depending on how it goes. Yeah. Yeah. But that's not us at this
Doubt
moment.
the taxes are gonna go down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In fact, I can almost assure you, it will not go down.
No.
And I mean, look, there's challenges, not just here and on the education budget, but, you know, we've built a new town hall. That's gonna have an impact. I have looked at this for a number of years. I think if you look at us compared to other towns, I believe the taxpayers have made out okay relative to the other towns. You know, the mill rates in other communities are higher than our mill rate. We're certainly catching up with some of the things we've done, and you could argue that, hey, it's about time for us to have done some of these things. Again, it ends up being a value judgment for all the members of the community who have to decide what kind of town do I want to live in. And that's not easy. I mean, for some people, they may not have the ability to make that choice because of their financial situation. And I go back to, okay, what's the median income for East Hampton? It's very favorable compared to other communities. So again, it goes back to the value judgment. Now, as we said earlier, ultimately we have to decide what we think is best for our community, whether it's the entire community or the school community, and make a determination and be committed to that.
So we have a motion and a second to approve our budget at $32,399,300. All those in favor? Why don't we do aye? Ann?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Paul, Mary, Karen, Rodney, principals, everybody. Thank you for these months of hard work since October, November. It's a long battle you guys do every year.
So this was anticlimactic.
It's not done yet. There's still,
Yeah.
there's still many steps to go.
This is a big step.
Great if it was anti-climactic.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Would you go right to our student reps?
I know, you guys, I don't even know what time it is.
Way past their bedtime.
I realized earlier. I saw your face over.
So, okay, so we're gonna bypass here. Student board representatives, all yours.
All right. So as far as athletics, indoor track completed their season. Several athletes participating at the state and state open meets. Runner Jake Ireland qualified for nationals in the 1,000 meter race.
Nice.
And Liv Stefano also qualified for nationals in the 5K race. Girls basketball finished the regular season with a record of 19 wins and only 1 loss. They're playing in the semifinals game for Shorelines tomorrow at Coggins and possibly the finals on Friday at Old Saybrook. Boys basketball currently has a record of 12 wins, 6 losses, and their senior night is Thursday. In co-op with Portland, wrestler Dylan Levesque placed first at the Class S state championship for his weight class, and he placed first for the 2nd year in a row. In the cheerleading team, placed first at the Shoreline competition, also placing first for their 2nd year in a row as well.
Busy.
And then as for school activities, America's Next Top Bell Ringer, which is basically just a spin-off of Mr. Bell Ringer, is being postponed until next Thursday in order to get more participants. And we also had an advisory about mental health and different ways to cope with stress, which was part of Nathan Piscatelli's capstone project.
Is Nathan a senior now?
What was that? What happened?
Mark's just having
Having a moment.
Do share.
My oldest son
Yeah.
helped coach their team as U9s.
Take a breath.
Oh, Lord, he's gonna freak out when I tell him that.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Yeah, Amy, you're fading. Yeah. Thank you for sticking that out. All right, nothing on personnel, policy, curriculum. Anything you want to add? I know you guys have been meeting. We have a few to approve tonight, or second reads. Yeah.
We did meet today.
Finance, transportation, building grounds. Nothing recently. No. Any left learned. Okay, we are moving along. No presentation.
Yes, presentation.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. The update for 2030.
Chris and Andy are going to give you an update on our work for East Hampton 2030.
While they're setting up, just quickly, the capital committee has met the last few Wednesdays. We're meeting again this Wednesday. I believe we're planning on voting this Wednesday.
Nope. Okay.
And I sent to the board in your email what the plan looks like at this point. There's a whole spreadsheet that the town has put together. I'm going to go watch this on the screen.
Yeah, so we can see it.
Sorry for this.
Paul, I thought you were going to go over there and just question everything.
I thought my back to the board might be a little rude.
Too much.
You're pretty brave sitting there.
I was just thinking that. Go ahead, but you know
All right, for those of you that are left, Chris and I are excited to share with you the progress we've made so far on East Hampton 2030, and I think I speak for him when I say we're both honored to be a part of this exciting process. So when Paul invited us to engage in this valuable learning experience and work for the district, first thing we wanted to do was put together a coming soon document to let everybody know what to be on the lookout for. So this was sent out prior to the winter break to let people know that we were developing a survey, what those questions would be, connecting it back to the profile of the graduate work that had been done, really trying to fit it into the beliefs, the context, and the practices within our district.
And speaking to this survey, Mr. Gonzalez will go around and actually give you the document that I'm going to review very briefly, this portion of the presentation. It was sent out to the community over the course of a few weeks. We were extremely pleased with the amount of feedback and quality of feedback that we received from educators, from the community, and from our staff. Within the survey, we asked only 3 questions to look for specific information from the community of where do we want to be in 2030 in our schools, in our classrooms, and as a town. And throughout those responses, you'll see they're organized by question and then also sort of put in buckets. Off to the right-hand side, they're categorized. So for example, the first question, first kind of bucket of responses, you'll see on the right-hand side, future ready. So by categorizing all of those responses, we're able to take this information to the next step and say to whether it's the Superintendent's Advisory Council, whether it is our steering committee, here's what the community is saying. So how can we react and reflect and act on this particular set of response data, which is extremely rich. There's a lot to go through, and as you do flip through that in the coming days or weeks, please reach out, if you have any questions or input on that process.
Mr. Sullivan mentioned our focus groups. We actually have already begun this process. We were fortunate enough to sit down with some community members at the Superintendent Advisory Council meeting last week and take some of their feedback regarding these buckets of information and actually change our thought process we're going to be now meeting with student groups later this week, both from the high school and the middle school. That was some of the feedback from the Superintendent Advisory Council. Chris and I are really looking forward to just having casual conversations with the students, asking them how they like to learn, what they would like to see more of in East Hampton, and really just get their perspective, because it's extremely important as we plan East Hampton 2030.
So as we take a large amount of data here with 200 plus responses, conversations with different groups, with students, how do we boil that down into a single document and some statements that are powerful in terms of moving our district forward? So it is the very important work of this steering committee that is listed up here. That's a nice cross-section, representative of the town, of the school system, of the parent community, to make sure that what we are doing is taking that step forward. So some of the goals of the group, this will take place next week, include revamping our vision, our mission, and really making sure that we are a leader throughout not just the state of Connecticut, but the nation. In terms of the steps that we took forward with our profile of the graduate, people look at East Hampton and say, wow, that is impressive. That's not something that I have seen before. And there's some notoriety in that piece. What we want to do next is make sure that our vision and our mission match that wow factor, and make sure that we are serving the best not only for our students, but we have our sights set on what would be appropriate for our learners to be productive citizens in 2030 and beyond.
So just branching off of what Chris just said there, we have a fabulous foundation to work from. The committees that put together East Hampton 2025 really put together a clear vision and mission, and since that has been, we've developed our profile of the graduate, all the descriptors that go along with it. So it's really going to be a challenge, but an engaging, exciting opportunity to kind of meld those two together. And if Chris clicks over into the timeline, we hope to be able to do that work in a short time frame. We hope to have a perusal copy available for you on the 10th of March. The steering committee is actually getting together on the 3rd. We're going to spend a day together going over all of the focus group conversations, over all these bucket data information, and really hope to come together with a very robust and dynamic vision, mission statement. And then we'll be putting that forward for a public review on the 23rd, and having a first read at an official board meeting on the 6th of April, hopefully with adoption and approval on the 27th.
So with ultimate Board of Education approval, what we hope to have is a document that boils down all of this information, sets the vision for our district, something that we are proud of. Hearing the conversation tonight, I know that we're all very proud of what takes place in our town and in our buildings. And we want to make sure that that's appropriately shared throughout all of the documents, the vision, the mission that we have in East Hampton. So next steps, we're already planning for that. Where do we go from here? So we're looking to make sure that there's a nice kickoff in the community and in the district. We're setting our sights on convocation for the 2020-2021 year. And looking to add a fresh perspective of our take of these documents and making them come alive, whether that be through various video segments or there have been other type of promotional videos that we've seen, whether it's the Hartford Public Schools, other magnet schools, that really sell the district and the work that they're doing, again, not just to the community, but anyone that was to take a look at East Hampton Public Schools and what we're all about.
And in addition to those new creative approaches to how we're marketing the great things that are happening in East Hampton, we're really trying to also focus on a tagline or something that speaks to East Hampton, to everyone. That when you say East Hampton, that's the first thing that comes to mind. So on that last little visual, it just showed some different examples of what other districts are doing. And we have some ideas for that as well, some things that have already been used that are very catchy and speak to the work that we're doing in East Hampton. But it would be nice to have these groups together around the table, really sharing ideas and moving the district forward. Any questions?
I just had one. In the members of the focus group, there were 2 students there?
Yeah.
High school students?
Yes.
Are they seniors or younger?
So when we're meeting with the student groups later this week, we're actually meeting with 8 students from the high school, 2 from each grade level. The 2 that are serving as the seniors are going to then join us for this steering committee work.
Thanks.
Okay.
So this work, and I compliment the gentleman on, putting these into different buckets, because this ultimately becomes the vocabulary that will make up the mission statement, the vision statement, and some of the core value statements that we believe. So there's a lot of themes that run through this, and I think to have that as data is pretty powerful.
I real quick looked at the last packet, what will the classroom look like? And just glancing, I think every single one talking about more technology. And I love the one someone said, no paper or whatever at all in the classroom. No books or paper for anything. So, imagine.
It took 25 pages of paper to tell you that.
Does the mission statement, Paul, change? Because looking at 10 years out to 2030, the world will change and happen between now and then.
Yeah, sure.
Mission statement,
Sure.
a live and breathing document that changes with.
Oh, absolutely. So in 2016, when I first arrived, is when we did the East Hampton 2025. And I felt I wasn't in a place to start toying with the district's mission statement and vision statement. And we don't really use them for a lot. We use this slogan, opening the door to each child's future, much more than we use our vision and mission statement. So we really feel like it's time to update the mission and vision. But just because we're calling it 2030, I'm hoping that we don't wait to 2030 before we revise it again. Notice, East Hampton 2025, we're already putting on the shelf now, and we're looking, 5 years down the road. So I anticipate by the time it's 22, 23, we'll be looking at all those documents. I don't think if you're looking at least 10 years out in education, because second graders are the class of 2030. Everybody who graduates this year through that class will either be entering the workforce or entering college or already in the workforce. So if we're not looking out 10 years as a group of educators, our kids are just falling behind. I think we've got to really start educating people that say, well, when I went to school, we had this. Well, the world that you entered after high school was very different than the world our children are going to enter. This is a group of students in our schools now who never grew up without knowing what iPads and iPhones were. It's a whole different generation, and if that's, imagine 10 years down the road now, and I think that's what we've got to start doing a better job of. Not just saying, okay, we live budget year to year to year. We've got to start being able to communicate what do our children need 10 years from now. Because they are our second graders, and they can't walk out of here in 2030 doing the same thing that our students are doing now. It's changing that dramatically.
Where would this loving parents come in the process here to help with steering and guiding?
Well, keep in mind that a lot of these comments came from parents. So I think, parents are looking to us, and, I can't control loving parents, but I will take responsibility for what goes on in the school at least.
I had loving parents, but I was too stupid to realize that, so I tried to bring it up. I've since made amends, so.
Good to hear. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, back to policy and curriculum. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 policies here. First one, we have a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and Board of Education Policy and Curriculum Committee and approve policy 9132, standing committees.
So moved.
Mark, second.
Second.
Jim, okay, discussion, comments on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Second one, motion to accept the recommendations of the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education Policy and Curriculum Committee and approve policy 9132.3, Committee on Policy and Curriculum. Motion,
So moved.
Mark, second.
Aye.
Amanda, comments there? All those in favor? Aye. Next, motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education Policy and Curriculum Committee and approve omitting policy 9132.4, Committee on Curriculum.
So moved.
Mark, second. Oh, we had a
Jim.
try.
Jim can have it.
Okay, Jim, it's yours.
I already had two.
Questions, comments there? All those in favor?
Aye.
And motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education Policy and Curriculum Committee and approve policy 9132.6, Committee on Public Relations.
So moved.
Mark, second.
Second.
Nancy. Oakley, I think we have to,
Oh,
Nancy O.
nice work.
Nancy O and Nancy
We're used to
K.
that.
Okay. Questions there? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so now we have first read here. Policy committee, you want to talk about? Oh, no, wait, it's the second read. What am I doing?
There's one more.
No.
Second.
9160.
Review the recommended. At the next meeting, we will.
That's a misprint.
Yeah, that
was
should be a
also second
motion.
reading.
Yeah.
They just checked.
So it would be accept the recommendation, superintendent of school, Board of Education Policy Curriculum Committee to approve policy 9160, student representative. Correct?
Correct.
That's how it should be, yes. Okay. So do we have that motion? Amanda, second.
Second.
Nancy, O. Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the change was moving from the student council to the administration. Should you add some flavor to that change?
Yes, so it wasn't necessarily, the students aren't necessarily selected out of the student council.
Okay.
It's usually the administration that have worked with the teachers to select two students.
So we're just really formalizing
We're,
the process.
we're going with our practice now instead of what the policy read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we're good. Now we have the first read. Policy Committee on the Armed Security Officer.
So the policy that you have in front of you, the only change is striking out the 6-month study. There's no other changes at this point. And you'll notice by March 9th, the study is over, which is your next meeting that you'll vote to approve this. At our last meeting, and I know Chris, you weren't here, we did, the high school completed the survey, so about over 80% of both groups would like to keep the security officer armed.
Just an update for maybe a couple of the new ones. When we started this armed security officer role, we did the policy as a trial period and then agreed to come back and review it once all this information is in. So
I should know this, but I don't. Is the armed security guard just in the high school, or is he roved to the other schools as well?
no, he's
Just-
assigned to the high school. Yep.
In the written policy, the note at the very, very end, does that remain even though that still remains even though it's
Which
coming
one?
off the trial period?
Regulation will
Is
be
it
reviewed.
the last page?
No,
Is that-
if our current armed security officer was to leave, we've given the proviso that we would look at all the regulations, because we do not necessarily have to arm that person right away. We would have a trial period, we would wait for recommendation from the high school that this person was appropriate to arm. So I think we'd want to, and we can use Dave because we're very happy with Dave, we hope he stays for a long time. But if Dave were to leave, I think we'd want to go through this again, and as you're hiring, make sure that before we arm
Yeah,
them,
okay.
we've got someone that we feel is appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, so that'll be on for the next meeting. Future business, no personnel actions, audience of citizens. We have a couple left that made it. Yes.
My name is Chairman of the Board of Finance. I want to thank the superintendent and staff for putting together comprehensive information throughout this process. And I look forward to the board and being active advocates in the budgeting process going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing none. We are done.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Mark, seconds?
I'll second.
Yeah, and I'll second. Approved. Good night, thank you. Amanda.